on in. Hey, Shelley. We're just recording the session to people just in case they need to head off. But yeah, just pop in the chat. What brings you here today into this coaching mindset discussion? In the meantime, I'll get all this set up for us here. It is a windy Melbourne morning. It's just going afternoon. Shocking wind. Is it windy where you are?
Yes.
Yeah. Hi, Jay. Jay's not from Melbourne. I was just saying it's a really windy day here in Melbourne.
Oh, really? And that's beautiful here in Brisbane.
Yeah. Don't make us jealous, Jay. We are warm today, though. We're very, very warm.
We had some windy days last week, though.
Yeah, I think it must have blown down to us then, hey?
Possibly.
Yeah. We'll just let everybody in. In fact, Jay, I'm going to make you super co-host if that's okay.
Sure.
Beautiful. All right. Jay could be answering the front door as everybody's coming in. Good to see you all. Hello. Hey, Rachel. We've seen each other only recently.
Yeah.
Rita, how are you? Good. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thank you.
Excellent. Just as you're coming on in, a big warm welcome to you. I'll welcome everybody properly. Hey, Amber, how you doing? Put in the chat, though, my question for you, if I could be so bold as to start with a question, is what brings you here today? What is it about the coaching mindset or anything else? Maybe you just want a good natter over lunch, if it is lunch, in your neck of the woods. I sent one child off on camp today and thought, oh, yep, good. And then the other one's homesick with, I think, suspected tonsillitis. It's always the way, isn't it? Always the way. But we're doing lots of dream. We've got a year 12er who I think she's the one with the tonsillitis. So we but anyway, the week can only get better, hey? Excellent. People are coming on in and we'll let them continue to do that. If you've just joined, the little conversation that we're starting to have is what brings you here today? And I wouldn't mind you just popping into the chat and letting us know what brings you here today on a Monday inside the coaching mindset, a new way to lead. I need to get a prop because I'll need a prop a little bit later. All right, beautiful. Well, Jay's going to continue to let people in. And in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and formally welcome you all to today's session. So thank you for spending an hour of your Monday with me. It's always good to hang out with people on a Monday, particularly on our Monday masterclasses that we do once a month. And today's topic is inside the coaching mindset, a new way to lead, which we're talking about over the next 60 minutes or so. Before we begin formally, I want to acknowledge I'm on Wurundjeri country today. And I want to pay my respects to Aboriginal elders, past, present and emerging. And I extend my respects to your lands on where you are today, whether that's your offices or a co-working space or your homes, wherever you are coming from. I pay my respects to where you are. And I hope you've been able to do a little bit of grounding and connecting today. I must admit I haven't spent too much time outside today in Melbourne because my hay fever and my allergies does not like all wind, but plenty of movement and things to keep me kind of moving inside, which is always important. All right, a warm welcome to you all. So inside the coaching mindset, please feel free to have your lunch as we go through because it's important that we're doing that, given that it is your lunch break. And I'm hoping that today will be presentation and conversation because that is all about coaching. It can't be a one-way dialogue. So that's what I'm hoping for today. Keep scanning the chat as I will and obviously keep participating from a chat perspective. The first question I've asked you all, if you were here a couple of minutes or so ago, is what brings you here today? And I can see just as we're having a look through, it looks like for most people it is, I guess looking at maybe a new skill or a skill that you already have, maybe one that you want to leverage, one that you want to improve. We do certainly see coaching as a style of leadership. And it's probably more than a style, actually. It is one component of leadership, but if I was to be so bold to say it's probably the biggest one, I don't think I'd be overstating it too much. And so today, really what we want to do is take you into this coaching mindset and give you a little bit of, an indication of what do we mean by this coaching mindset and why it's so important in leadership. Please feel free to continue to participate through the chat. Put your hand up if you want to say something. I always welcome that as we go through. We don't have to wait till the end to take questions. Does that sound okay for everybody? Excellent. If you can have your screen on, please do so. If not, we understand. Don't worry about eating on camera. We're all good with that. Okay, here we go. So inside the coaching mindset. Get this working. Beautiful. So we've started with what brings you here today, and it looks like, as we can see, we've got people wanting to enhance their skills, and maybe you're wanting to find out what does, leading with this coaching mindset really mean. Very quickly, I don't want to bore you too much with this detail, but it is important for those of you that love a good roadmap around where we're going in the next 55 minutes or so. My plan over this time is to really help you understand, what does coaching and leadership mean? There are 6 core components, and that's what I want to take you through today. What are these core components? What do they mean? How can I use them in leadership? And why is that going to make me a better leader? It will. I kind of feel like I need to go, here are the steak knives with it. If anyone remembers those old telly ads from way back when, this is the promise and the commitment to you, but it will make you a better leader. And not only that, it makes stronger organizations. And for those of you that want to delve into the research, the You Are How You Lead book, which was published 2 years ago, 2 years ago almost to the day actually, absolutely takes us through what that coaching mindset in it has all the research in there, but also what it does in organizations when we are bringing about this coaching mindset. It does change cultures. But there are some coaching skills that we'll talk about today. There are some challenges too. We can't get into a conversation like this without considering the challenges and then looking at, how we integrate these principles day to day. So when we are coaching, it doesn't feel like an event, but rather something that we're doing all the time. All right, just check. Jay, I just want to do a check that we are recording. I believe we are, but if you could just check that for me, that would be awesome. All right. Let's go this way. So, coaching skills in leadership. Now, these are coaching skills that have been picked up from a data scan, so a desktop review, if you like, almost a little literature review in coaching skills in leadership. And my question to you as you look through these little dot points is, which one do you think that leaders struggle with the most? So if you had to pick one out of these ones, which one would it be? And I'm very happy for you to pop it in the chat or unmute. Empathy.
I think feedback is one.
Feedback, yes. Kylie, agree. We're going to cover both of those today, which is good. Solutions focus, yeah. So letting the coachee arrive at their own solution, Denise? Yeah. Tell me a little bit more about that, Denise. Would you mind unmuting? Have you just taken a mouthful? So rude.
I have unashamedly been eating my lunch.
Good.
So for I think it's very easy for us, particularly I'm in a HR role, just jumping in and going, this is what you need to do. So for me, I've used the GROW coaching method, and I try and sort of help the person to get to where they need to get to. But I still always want to jump in and help them to actually create that solution for them. But I know that they need to sort of work it out themselves. So that's, I think, where I see lots of managers struggle as well.
Yeah. So Denise, when you're jumping into is it wanting to help, or is it also to kind of hurry them along sometimes? When you need to just get stuff done and you're like, oh, it's going to take a long time. If I am to be coaching this person and I need to have lots of discussion. So what's the driver for you?
It is partly that I do come from that place of thinking this is going to take a long time if I, and sometimes we don't have that time. So I think it's a valid approach sometimes. But at the same time, that's the main thing. I think it's time.
Yeah, nice. So Denise was very honest there, and I think is it the same for many of you? Can you just give me a show of hands, either with the reaction button or actually put your hand up if that was one that you're thinking? But that's challenging, letting the coachee arrive at their own time or at their own solution. Yeah, along with empathy and asking questions and all those things, providing that structure. Excellent. So the research tells us that that's a very, very popular view, and one that is the biggest challenge for leaders. So letting the coachee arrive at their own solution, as we just kind of started to unpack there with Denise, it takes a lot of time. And that's one thing that if you are here going, great, I want to develop a coaching mindset, but you want to do it quickly, I can't sell you a silver bullet that's going to help you with that, unfortunately. So don't go anywhere if that's you, because I can work through that with you. I'm probably one of the most impatient people on the planet. For those of you that know me well, you'll know that. But it is not a quick solution. So when we're getting into this coaching mindset, we do need to be prepared to invest the time. But as Denise said, then, sometimes we're jumping in because we want to help and support. And often that's because we just need to get this thing done. And it's easier if I, describe it to you and be quite directive rather than coach or support and even then delegate once I've given you a little bit more flavor to what I need to do. So it is probably the number one hurdle, and the literature supports that. So, and along with, all of these things here are valid in the literature, by the way, so they're not things that we've made up. Certainly empathy is one which we're going to go through today, giving feedback, which can be really challenging, particularly if you know that person's going to have a particular reaction to it, or if you're not feeling strong and confident about giving that feedback. But letting the coachee arrive at their solution and their own solution is the number one challenge. And it is also the number one skill that we've got to develop in leadership. So I want to talk you through how we do that today. All right. So you're in good company. It's a popular view based on the chat, but also based on the research. So this is the lead like a coach model. And at the start today, if you were here, I said to you that there are 6 key components to lead like a coach. And if you are going to really adopt this coaching mindset, these are non-negotiables. And I'm usually not that kind of, steadfast. Usually I give a little bit of adaptability and flexibility. But in a coaching mindset, the research tells us that these are the core competencies that you need. And they're all obviously outlined in You Are How You Lead. But today, I'm going to take you through them so you've got a really good understanding of them. And so you can walk away from today thinking, do I want to lead like a coach? Do I actually want to adopt this as a coaching mindset? Most of us will have some familiarity with coaching. So can I just have a show of hands for those that have actually been coached, either professionally or through sporting or anything like that? Okay, so we've got a few that have been coached. Is there anybody that is a coach? Give me a show of hands if you are a coach. Again, professional development or sporting coach. Yeah. And if you're a mentor, we're going to also throw you in with this bucket. And I know that those that are purist coaches will go, no, Rita, you can't do that. Yes, they are different things. I'm well aware they're different things. But in terms of the skills that you need to lead like a coach, if you are a mentor, that's going to help you along too. So the lead like a coach model was developed so we can give people a really clear indication of what does it mean to coach. I'm going to draw your attention first to the middle of this circle where we've got self-awareness and trust, because we're going to start to spend our time there today. And I'd love you to think of this little model almost like a little motor. And the things that propel this motor or this little flywheel are self-awareness and trust. They are at the heart of the model. And you can't really do the other components if you do not have self-awareness and trust. So self-awareness is about you being tuned into you knowing yourself really well. This includes all the good bits and all the blind spots and all the challenges. And we don't look at the blind spots and challenges necessarily as things to fix, but we do need to be aware of them. What we really want to focus on is the strengths that you bring into the coaching environment and the strengths that you can leverage. But we really need to be tuned into ourselves before we can turn up honestly in a discussion and be able to understand anybody else, right? So we've got to understand ourselves first. And then trust is the number one principle that's really going to provide that fuel, if you like, for the relationship. And that's why at the start of every coaching relationship, we will have a connect call with our potential coachees. And that that is more for them than us. And that is really for the coachee to determine whether there is enough trust in there, which is hard, right? Through a 60-minute conversation, it's hard to know that you can develop that trust. But we get a sense, because trust is almost energetic. We get this sense of, can I work with you? Can I trust you? Now, in a leadership relationship, because your relationship is usually longer term, the trust has to be there all the time. Because when you're going to be moving into a coaching conversation, the person needs to know that they can be open. They need to know that you are going to be prepared to understand them. Maybe not agree with them, and that's really not the point of it, but really understand them to see where they're coming from. So self-awareness and trust are these little two components that propel our flywheel, right? And they are there all the time. There will be some trust, deficits and credits, and same with self-awareness. You're not always going to be on your game 100% because we're humans, not robots. But the majority of the time, it's going to be there. And they're critical ingredients for this coaching relationship and a coaching mindset. Then we've got the 4 other components: connect and ask, which you can see there on the left-hand side, and calibrate and support. Connect and ask, and we're going to go through all 6 of these today. But to connect is to empathize. It's to have a stronger understanding of where the person comes from. And it is the key word I want to emphasize there is understand. It is not to fix. It is not to remediate. It is not to challenge. It is not to change. It is for you to understand. Because all those things, the remediation, the addressing the challenges, the changing, that's actually the responsibility of the coachee. And in this instance, your person in your team that you are coaching. So I'm hoping here that you're starting to see a little bit of a difference with more traditional leadership, where we can be more directive perhaps, and we're starting to just explore, right, through coaching. Your number one vehicle for coaching is going to be asking great questions. And if you come away with nothing else today other than, coaching mindset, good, got to ask some good questions, I'm pretty happy with that. It's a great start. And you're probably thinking, well, what are these questions, Rita? And I'm going to give you these questions today. I'm going to give you my favorite questions. The other thing we need to do then on the right-hand side, and these are more the outcomes really of coaching, but it's to calibrate. Now, as a leader, if you are leading right now, leading a team or leading a project even, maybe you're leading yourself in a project and maybe a team, you are hit with all these several data points every single day. And those data points don't stop on the weekend, because you're probably ruminating and thinking, and maybe you've gone on a walk this weekend and you're thinking about how you might approach a particular problem or challenge. And to calibrate, it's a term that we borrow from neuro-linguistic programming, and basically it is, how do we synthesize all those different data points that we have? Because if we are only operating on the data points that are screaming at us the loudest, so the things that are symptomatic, and we're not really seeking to understand by going under the hood and really delving in, we're going to potentially make decisions which are not going to be great decisions. Maybe we're not going to ask the right questions. Maybe we're not going to understand that person. And then finally, support. And support here is about the support that the person needs from you versus the support that you usually provide. Now, if the support you usually provide matches what the person needs, then bingo, great. Not as much effort for you, hopefully high impact for that person. But sometimes our default support, which might be, going in and advising and almost taking on that mentorship role and going in and trying to fix a problem or address a solution, may not actually be what the person needs. So in support, we are very much, it's like if we were dancing with this person, we need to have them as our lead dance partner. And we are following them, if that resonates for people. All right. So are we all good on the model? This is the lead like a coach model. Everyone with me so far? All right. Beautiful. Let's keep going. So when we are leading through this coaching mindset, we need to be really conscious and cognizant of the language that we're using and how we're communicating. And to help me with this, I really like the work of Fred Kaufman. And he runs an organization called Axiolant, or at least used to. And he wrote a great book called Conscious Business many, many years ago. And I was in an organization when I was introduced to Fred Kaufman's work. I was in an organization at the time, and we were going through a significant merger with another organization. And it's one of those ones where it's categorized as a merger, and let's face it, it was a takeover, right? There was really no merging about it. It was a takeover. And I was on the side of the organization that was being taken over. So significant cultural change, significant challenges and implications, also lots of opportunity and excitement. I don't want to portray this as a terrible story. It wasn't. There was lots of upside to this takeover/merger. But one thing I was introduced to that has always resonated with me was this concept of the knower and the learner. And I want to share this with you today because it's super, super important in coaching, and particularly around the language that we're using. So if you scan through the left-hand side and you read those descriptors under knower, you will get a sense of the type of person that might be displaying or demonstrating these kinds of characteristics and behaviors. They're the know-it-alls. They're the ones that are annoying in teams and in organizations. And they're the ones that you go, oh, this is not going to be a conversation. This is just going to be a tell show. And the person kind of beating their chest about how good they are and what they know. Does everyone know what I mean by that? It's like boring, isn't it? There's nothing two-way about it. And it's even worse when it's absolutely worse when they're the leader. But GL leadership rooms are full of them, aren't they? Leadership teams are full of these kinds of people. Now, I don't want to be too harsh on these people. We need knowers, by the way. We need people that know stuff. Yeah, exactly, Paul. Exactly. We don't want to be too harsh, though, with these people because knowledge for them is currency. And they have, over the years, they have developed and honed their knowledge, and they have developed expertise that they lead with. So it's really hard to get a person who has developed all this knowledge and expertise to say, well, now we don't want you to lead with that. You're just going to go in and ask a bunch of questions and lead a bunch of other people. But what you know, all your knowledge that you've built in that expertise now is secondary. That's pretty hard. Would you agree? If we want to shift these big terms, I love it. I haven't heard that for so long. Who was a Collingwood football coach that actually was named that? Someone help me out. I should know this because I live in a semi-Collingwood house. Nathan Buckley. Yeah, Nathan Buckley. This was the title that he was given. Sorry, non-Victorians or those that are not really into AFL. But this is the title that he was given. Yeah, Mick Malthouse probably had a little bit of that too, Marion, because I think he wasn't coaching them, obviously. Anyway, Nathan Buckley was. Anyway, I know it's September and I know it's Victoria, but we're not all here in Victoria, but we're not all Victorians. That fig jam mentality, we can actually change them to become more learners. I don't know if Nathan Buckley ever did. But that's what we want to do. We want to take these leaders that know all this stuff and have all the expertise. And what we want to do is actually then try and change their mindset to becoming one of a learner. Now, the biggest hurdle for these people that are leading with what they know when they're coming over to the learner is that they feel that they're going to lose power. And they feel that they're going to be less valuable because all of a sudden they're leading with curiosity and questions versus what they know. And I reckon that I feel that. Does anyone else feel that? You can understand why a person would be reluctant to change and to perhaps develop more of a learner mindset when what they have had to lead with is their knowledge. But I was going to say but I need a but in this, right? When we are leading with a coaching mindset, what you know has to take second place. Because what's important in your coaching conversations with your team is actually, what's important and critically important is you unlocking the wisdom in them. Because what they will learn for themselves through those coaching conversations that you will lead and through the questions that you will ask is going to stay with them and resonate with them to a much, much greater extent than what you will ever tell them. So it's not sage on the stage or I'm the knower, I know it all. You can know it, and great that you know it as a leader, but what we want you to do is extrapolate what the other person knows and unlock their wisdoms through some great questions that you are going to be able to ask because of what you know. But you're not leading with what you know. You're going to lead with these questions. Is that making sense to people? So we want you and everybody else that's prepared to take on this coaching mindset really to behave like a learner. We want you to be open in your language. We want you to value learning and therefore embracing things like, actually, I don't know. What do you reckon about that? I've actually never confronted that. I've never been in that situation. So let's explore it together. And it becomes a partnership versus what I know and me telling you and me being the sage. They are, people that are learners are just the thinker of thoughts. And I love that phrase in particular because as a thought comes through, they're like a vessel for their thoughts. They don't attach themselves, their personality, their being to the thought. And therefore, the judgment on the thought is away from them. If a person judges the thought or judges the opinion, they're not judging them. So there's a really lovely distance and a separation, which means that then we embrace productive conflict. We embrace dialogue and debate because we're just tossing around a bunch of ideas really lightly and no one's attached to them. Yeah. And they absolutely lead with humility rather than arrogance. So this is a frame, and I know I've probably gone on about it longer than I wanted to, but I really wanted to drum in here that the language that we're using, how we're understanding, and the currency, moving from knowledge to curiosity is really important in that leadership and leading like a coach. I'm scanning for questions. Okay. Keep them coming though. All right. So far, Noah and Learner really get a touch on our self-awareness component. There are other ways that we look at self-awareness. So, for example, diagnostic tools, strength finders, all those kinds of things, and even your own view on what are your strengths. We might look at Johari for identification of some blind spots, 360, all that data. So that's really that component of self-awareness. But to tune in, the first thing we're going to do is, am I a learner? Am I using the language of a learner? And do I embrace those characteristics and behaviors of being a learner? The second component that we come to, which is that image, hopefully, that you can make out on the screen of a horse, is this beautiful Dutch proverb, trust arrives on foot, but it leaves on horseback. What does that mean? Does anyone want to unmute or pop it in the chat? What does that mean?
It's very slow to earn trust, but when you've got it, it's rapid. It sort of spreads across the team as such, I suppose you could say.
Yeah, lovely, Raylene. Yeah. So it is slow to earn it, and it can be lost in an instant. We can lose trust without even opening up our mouths. Right? A gesture or a missed gesture rather, or maybe we've inadvertently ignored when we meant to, but all of that can lead to mistrust. So we need to work on it all the time, really, is the meaning behind this proverb. And even when you have been, leading your team and that person for many, many years, it's not something that we can take for granted. So trust arrives on foot, leaves on horseback. It's one of those things that we need to work on all the time. I mentioned to you before, trust debits or deficits and credits. They occur all the time in a relationship. So maybe we cancel a one-on-one too often. Maybe we make a commitment to our team that then we can't honour. Maybe they make one to us that they can't honour. They're little symbols where trust starts to erode in a relationship. It will happen, but we're going to want to make sure that we're putting in more trust credits than what we are debits. So another framework to help us along with this is the trust equation. Has anyone seen this before? Some of you may have seen it across your travels. This trust equation comes from the work of David Meister, and he wrote a book many, many years ago called The Trusted Advisor. It's an oldie but a goodie, particularly if you work in the space of, influencing stakeholders, having to build partnerships, internally or externally in your organization. It's a good book for that. But you could go on to Blinkist or ChatGPT and it'll give you a nice summary if you don't want to go and buy the book. But this work comes from David Meister and his crew in the book. And I really like it. It's a simple equation. And what it does is it reminds us of what are the core aspects of trust. So we can say, yeah, trust arrives on foot, leaves on horseback. Yes, we need it. We all know we need trust in any relationship. But what this little equation does here is it breaks down the components of trust. So credibility, and I'll take you through all the different aspects, but credibility is, if we purport to have particular expertise, do we have that? If we say that we've got capacity to take something on, do we have that? Or are we going to end up creating broken promises and expectations that can't be fulfilled? Reliability is, are we good for our word? So if I say to you that we're going to meet, every month, are we going to do that, or am I going to cancel out all the meetings? If I tell you that I'm going to be able to deliver something and then I can't, then that's going to impact reliability, which erodes trust. And the final one is intimacy. And in this context, it's about the frequency and the quality of our connection. So 20-minute one-on-ones are fine as long as we're spending that 20 minutes talking about the right stuff. Sometimes we could end up having a 60-minute one-on-one, and it could be kind of stuff that should really go into a dashboard. So you've got the frequency there because you're committed to it, but maybe the quality is not so good. So quality does not always equal more time. It's just making sure we're working on the good stuff. It's kind of like the concentrated stuff that you want in that one-on-one in particular. If it's with your team, it's making sure, and if we're talking collectively rather than individual level, it's that we are creating that frequency and quality of connection. So are we all getting on a team meeting, but we've got, 6 out of 10 of us that have got their screens off, not really paying attention? Or are we all present and actually really, really there? So that's what intimacy means in this context. So credibility, reliability, intimacy, and then self-orientation down the bottom. What they say in this equation is that if we are only building trust to meet our own need, then there's no trust. So if I build trust with you because I perceive that I need something from you, because you need to help me with something, or, you've got to deliver something, or you've got a close relationship with a stakeholder that I need a close relationship with, and I'm only building trust for that, then that's not trust. That's influencing at best, manipulation at worst, right? So what I'd love you to do, if you have a little piece of paper next to you, I'd love you, and maybe you are already thinking about someone, I'm hoping that you are, that you need to build some more trust with. Could you just please, and I'm not going to ask you to share this, so you can keep it very private for yourself, but with this person, what do you need to work on? Credibility, reliability, or intimacy? And if you're doing it from a self-orientation perspective, then does that need to be reduced? I'm going to give you a minute to do that. Can I just have a show of hands who's working on credibility? Reliability? How about intimacy? Okay. We've got a little bit of everything, which is good. And you might find that for your person, oh, gosh, we really need an injection of trust. I'm going to have to work on all of them. And that's fine too. It's very rare that we only have to work on one aspect. Okay. So that's trust. So far we've covered 2 aspects, self-awareness and trust. Now we're getting into connect. And with connect, where I want to spend most time is actually on empathy. But I did want to just share some statistics with you. I get a lot of questions from leaders about one-on-ones. It's one of the most popular questions that I get. Rita, how frequently should we be meeting? What should the one-on-ones include? We all know we need to do them. Does everyone do them, by the way? It's okay if you don't. Show of hands if you are currently having regular one-on-ones. Good. Okay. So the research this is now nearly 3 years old, but I think it's still pretty valid, and particularly in a hybrid environment. But we should be meeting with our team members at least 30 minutes once a week. Now, for those of you with more than 6 or 7 team members, you're going to be not liking me very much at this point. Don't not like me because I didn't pull the research together. But this is what the research says. But I can understand that for leaders with big teams, you're like, are you kidding me? If I spend that much time, I'm not going to have time to do my other stuff. And this is where you got to kind of do what works for you. And that's why I said a 20-minute one-on-one that's kind of high purpose, high concentration with all the good stuff in. Great. Don't worry about sitting there for 30 minutes or 45 minutes because a piece of research tells you that that's the right prescribed time. You do you, right? And do what's best for your team. The main thing here is, remember, if we're going back to intimacy and frequency and quality of connection, that's really what we need to be playing with here. If you can't meet every week, then every second week's okay, but obviously then the time gets a little bit bigger. And in a hybrid environment, then sometimes it's hard to meet every week or every second week, but some face-to-face time is great. If you can't have face-to-face time because you're living in another city or in another region, then at least do a Teams or do a Zoom. Right? So that's what the research is telling us. I wanted to throw another thing in here, and that is, what should your one-on-ones include? And my advice around this is 3 key things. They're easy to remember. Highlights. And I'd break this down into 10, 10, 10, so 10 minutes on each. Highlights. What are the highlights for that period of time? Lowlights. What are the things that did not go so well? And finally, insights. Highlights, lowlights, insights. The insights are the super, super important bit, because you want to understand what that person has taken away, their reflections, what meaning are they making from what's gone on. The highlights and the lowlights are kind of like it's the traffic light data. But what we really want is the traffic flow. So how is everything flowing because of these insights that we've developed? So connect is the first component of our coaching model, and don't scrimp on it. We need to, and also from a trust perspective, we need to be paying attention and meeting with our people. But there is another component of connection, and that is empathy. And in leadership, the key difference when we're talking about empathy from a leadership perspective is that we've got to have, this is some data from the Potential Project, which was reported in the Harvard Business Review a couple of years ago now. We've got to have this willingness to act. So we have to be engaged and motivated to do something, to take action. We can't admire the problem, as one of my delightful clients suggested that their team were doing a little while ago, admiring problems. And we've also got to have an understanding of the person's experience. Now, an understanding of their experience doesn't mean that you need to have lived experience. You don't have to have gone through what they're going through, but you need to have an understanding. And you're only going to develop that understanding through asking questions. How's that making you feel? What's the impact that's having? Tell me a little bit more about, etc. Right? Yeah, beautiful, Marion. And that's showing some great vulnerability too, right? If you pop into the chat and you can see Marion's comment in there. But do you get this distinction here? So for empathy, we need this willingness to act to support. Otherwise, we're admiring problems, and we need an understanding of the experience, not necessarily lived experience. Is everyone good with that so far? Okay, so that's the understanding of empathy that we're going in with. And then, so how do we develop more empathy? Now, some of you may have seen this if you've done any Deliberate Leader or Leaders Coach programs with me. We cover this, and we cover it in depth. So we spend lots and lots of time on the empathy map. I want to introduce it to you today, really to explain it. We're not going to have, we'd spend a good hour on it on its own. But to have more empathy, when we're saying, well, we need more understanding of the person's situation, and we've got to have this willingness to act, it's hard to do that without data and information. And what the empathy map does is it provides us a tool through which we can collect some data. So if we're using this, we would literally take a page, we'd quarter it, and we would have these questions at the top of the page. What do they say? What might they think? What do they do? And what might they feel? When you're embarking on the empathy map, you're going to be thinking about the person and you're going to be thinking about the issue. So the issue might be underperformance. It might be some conflict. It might be miscommunication. It might be you just don't like each other and you don't know why. It's really hard to develop empathy for people we don't like, but it's important. We're not going to like everybody in the workplace, but we do need to understand them. So we would quarter our page and we would just write down some dot notes based on our experience of this person. And at this stage, we've not asked the person any questions, right? We're just capturing what we know about them and what we know about the issue. The influences down the bottom are not how many Instagram followers they have. It is what is influencing their behavior. So who are the people? Is there someone in their ear positively or negatively influencing them? What do you know about their values? What do they hold dear? What are their beliefs around certain things, particularly around, time with the team? If you're wanting them to spend more time with the team, but they are very happy to operate solo because they're working on a very discrete project and they don't feel like they need to belong as part of their team, what's influencing that belief? And then finally, their assumptions. Now, I'm hoping that you're feeling at this stage that these questions are going to be pretty hard for you to answer. Is that right? Is anyone feeling that? And the reason they're hard to answer is because you're not in that person's head. You're not going to be able to know how they feel about an issue. So at some point, we're going to have to bring the person in on this empathy map. But we're not necessarily going to tell them that. And I don't want this to sound like we're being sneaky or anything, but I also don't want you to be walking around your organizations with empathy maps going, oh, I was just having a little think and I've just written down some notes and I'd like to now test these with you because that's weird. All right, so don't do it. We don't want to become weird as we're doing any of these things. We do, though, want to be thinking about the person. I know, thanks, Kellyanne. I always think that's a bit funny too. It's Rita's attempt at some humor at lunchtime. We don't want to be weird. We want just to have this as preparatory work before we're having any conversations with them. This is our homework. This is for us to really think about putting on our learner cap, really being curious and understanding the issue from their perspective. Is everyone still with me? Okay. So at this stage, self-awareness, we're tuning into ourselves, we're thinking about our language, maybe we're doing some diagnostics. Trust, we're having good frequent one-on-ones, we're connecting with people. Now we're into connection mode and particularly in asking questions. We're going to grab our empathy map and we're going to list everything that we know about each and this person. Doesn't take long, by the way, 5-10 minutes. We're not looking for, war and peace. We're just looking for some dot points. And then we've got these dot points. And now your question is going to be, and it should be, what do we do, Rita, with these questions and dot points? Okay. Just stay with me for a moment. We go here. And I have a little ratio there, 2-to-1. So far, we've been thinking about connecting with people and we've been thinking about jotting down all the things we know about them and this issue. And remember I said to you that at this stage, we haven't really brought the person in. We're just collecting information that we know. But now it's time to bring the person in. What would we do with that person once we're having a meeting with them and we're wanting to explore some of these dot points that we've captioned in empathy map that we haven't told them about because that's weird? What are we going to do? What does 2-to-1 mean in that context? Yeah, Kellyanne's onto it. We're going to ask a truckload of questions. And those questions are not going to feel like interrogations, by the way. We're just going to kind of pepper these questions in. We're going to ask them out for a coffee or a cup of tea or a mineral water, and we're just going to have a chat. And we're going to have a chat to them about the issue, whatever the issue is, and we're just going to pepper a few questions through that conversation, not an interrogation. Because, again, that's weird. It doesn't feel very comfortable. So we're just going to put a few questions in. This ratio is about what I'd love you to walk away from today. If you're happy to accept a challenge, because I love to throw out a bit of a challenge, I'd love you asking double the amount of questions and what you answer this week. Because my guess having worked with thousands of leaders in this space, is that leaders answer double the questions to what they ask usually. Is that about right? We answer lots of questions because we're asked lots of questions. But just because we're asked lots of questions, it doesn't mean we need to answer all those questions. And this is annoying at the start because we end up going, well, what do you think about that? Tell me a little bit more about what you think. And everyone knows what you're doing when you do that, right? They're onto you, they know. But the more we do it, the more they become familiar with it and the more resourceful they become as individuals because they go away and kind of really deeply and critically think about an issue. And then when they're coming to you, it's for a little bit of a kind of spruce up because they've done all that heavy lifting with the thinking. Now, this isn't about, talk to the hand every time someone comes up to you. I still want you to be nice. That's important. Otherwise, forget connect and trust. That goes out the window. But I would love you to accept that challenge of, could I ask double the amount of questions this week to what I answer? So when someone says to you, I don't know how to start this. Okay, let's explore it. Where are you thinking about starting right now? Where would be a good place to start? If you were advising someone else, where would you tell them to start? Right? That's 3 questions. When we're developing empathy, so let's go back to the empathy map, and you've listed down all these things, your vehicle for validating what you know in the empathy map is through questions. So this is a little extra challenge for this week if you want to do a little two for one, and I'd love to know how you go. Could you, because it's Monday, well, why not start a challenge on a Monday? It's only 5 days. If you could ask double the amount of questions to what you answer this week, what would it look like? A little social experiment. And now, what kind of questions are you going to ask? These questions are some of my favorite questions off the back of years of research. People like Michael Bungay-Stanier that wrote The Coaching Habit. He is fabulous, by the way. Check his work out. It's brilliant. Others that have written, a couple of my colleagues that just collect questions for funsies. I know that's weird, but they love it, right? They just collect questions. They watch documentaries. They really, really, really think about the types of questions that people ask. But this is off the back of research, and these are some of my favorites. Now, I'd love you to scan this and I'd love you to be inspired. By all means, borrow and steal them. These are yours. And I'm sure that you have some of your own favorites too that I would love. Add them in the chat. If you've got a favorite go-to question that you normally ask, what is it? Because we've got about, 9 there. It'd be great to have a few more that we could just, that we could borrow from the chat. I don't have favorites. Or I say to my children that my favorite is the dog because he often is the favorite, my fur baby. But my favorite question out of these questions are, it's the first one, how can I best support you? By far. And some of you will have heard me say that before. It's my favorite question because we're letting the person lead when we ask them that question. We're not presupposing the support that they need. We are not telling them the support that they need. We are still leaving it fairly and squarely within their accountability. How can I best support you? We're getting them to do the thinking. Yeah, beautiful. There are some questions coming through. Nice. So you've got an extra 3 or 4 there. Keep them going because I reckon we're already up to 13, 14, which is great. Okay, so that's our question. So far we've completed the empathy map. So we've connected. We're asking a bunch of questions. These questions can be asked all the time. And remembering your 2-to-1 challenge because you're going to ask more questions, maybe, than what you answer this week. Okay, calibrate. I mentioned to you earlier on that as leaders, we get lots of data points. And what do we do with all that data? And we've got to remember often that we've got that data because sometimes it's the thing that's screaming at us the loudest that gets our attention, and that's the thing that we react to or make the decision about. In Calibrate, what this process here is designed to do, and there's a whole chapter on it in You Are How You Lead, it is to remind us that we are calibrating all the time. So if you think about these circles as moving all the time, but almost like moving in a sequence and moving down in a downward kind of fashion that way, That's what we're doing through calibration, because we're going to connect. We're going to continue to build trust and really solidify that trust, show that interest, demonstrate that empathy. And then after we've done that, we're going to calibrate, because we're going to get more data. And then after we're asking some questions that will help us to validate what's in our empathy map, we get more data and we calibrate again. So this is an ongoing process, right? And even when we get some more data, we might not like the data that we receive, and that might create a little trust deficit in our mind. We're still going to calibrate, and we're still going to connect, and we're still going to ask a bunch of questions. And we are still going to be thinking about the support that that person needs. So this calibration process is just an ongoing process which continues forever through the coaching relationship. Questions or comments? Really be thinking about what's screaming at me the loudest here, and don't give it the attention that it's screaming for. Because if we do, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't, period, we should give it some attention, but if we're only giving that thing attention that's screaming at us the loudest, it is likely to lead to an outcome or solutions probably not as well thought of if you're considering the whole thing and all the different pieces of information data that you have. So that calibration occurs all the time. And then finally, support. And I already gave away to you today that my favorite question is, how can I best support you? And I also said to you at the start that in support, we're letting them be the lead dance partner, right? Rather than us telling them the support that we think they need. And as you scan through those things on the left, in and of themselves, they're probably not the most unsupportive thing that you can say, but they're not great. And I find myself saying those things several times a week to several people. And it's not because I'm not a supportive person, it's because it's usually default. It gives us a quick solution. So if you think about, it could be worse, it reminds me of the time when, seriously put it into perspective, what we're trying to do when we say those things is we're just trying to snap that person out of their thinking and go, come on, come over to this side, it's much better. Come on, let's get positive about this. Let's look at all the upside. And all they want to do is just wallow in the misery that's occurring around them. And the more we try and drag them, so this is classic change management stuff, right? The more we try and drag them to the other side because we don't want to see them or have them experiencing pain, we're actually doing them a disservice, because no amount of dragging them through quickly is necessarily going to remove that pain and that friction and that feeling of challenge that they have. So that's why we say, how can I best support you? And we just create space. We create space for conversation. We create space for them to think and reflect at a deeper level. Because remember, we are unlocking the wisdom that exists within them already. And if there is limited wisdom around that issue because maybe they don't have the expertise yet, that creation of space helps them to develop that wisdom. They have the tools. We just need to create space, which is why we ask questions, which is why we don't jump to solution, as we saw earlier on today. Everyone's still with me? So that's effectively support. So you'll see there with support that we've got a bunch of questions versus statements on the left-hand side. I think there's maybe one question on the left. And in supporting, we are being led by them versus the support that we want to provide them. Yeah, exactly, Kellyanne. They need to be ready to move ahead because they've reflected and they've been given that time and space. All right. We talked about feedback earlier on today, and that was one of those items in our list of 9 that was a coaching challenge. And in coaching, you will need to give some feedback, but I like to think about them as coaching conversations rather than I've got to deliver you with some feedback. And when we do this well, it does create more confidence for us in being able to deliver that feedback. So in our program, we give you a structure around how to do that. And when we're thinking about feedback and coaching conversations, we are thinking about developing a coaching culture. So this becomes more than you developing a coaching mindset and your coaching relationship with your person, but this becomes then, it's that ripple effect. How does it then positively impact the rest of the organization or our department, for those of you that are in mega-sized organizations? So we're bringing in that empathy and performance, and it can absolutely be used with anybody, not just your direct team. All right. So now we want to offer you today the Leader as Coach program. So what I've taken you through is in the You Are How You Lead book. Some of you might have already had a copy of the book. You can certainly get one on our website. And we have an online program for Leader as Coach that we're running through the month of October and November. We don't usually run it as an online program. We usually run it as an in-house. But because we've had so many requests for it and people trying to get it in this side of the year, and also people wanting to learn from others in different organisations, we wanted to give you an online offer. So we've got, you can jump on, I'll give you the QR code in a second. As a special, we're giving you 10% off to thank you for your attendance today. But it is a program over the course of about 6 weeks. We have 6 masterclasses that drop one every week. We have an Ask Me Anything session where you attend a live session with me and we work through the content and any of the questions that you might have. You also get a one-on-one coaching session, which is a pretty cool thing to have as part of it. These are the modules which we cover. So leading with empathy, which we've spent a bunch of time on today, building that team spirit. So we move away from just that one-on-one coaching relationship to how you can develop this across your team. We look at how to collaborate. So when we're coaching, but also when we're leading, particularly in hybrid teams, what's the best way to collaborate in a way that's going to create that longer term, that positive impact. We're looking at high impact communication. And so how do we communicate in a way that's effective, that's building on trust, that helps us to maintain that level of self-awareness? We look at change, right? Change is a huge component of leading like a coach, but also leading in today's environment. And every single conversation I'm having with leaders right now is all about how do we manage change? Whether it is restructures, which we're hearing, they're now hitting the press, big ones, as I'm sure we will have heard all last week. Whether it's, technology, whether it's how do we change our workforce to be more adaptable around what's happening with AI? How do we promote the usage of it? How do we reduce the usage of it? Everything in between. So being an evolution champion is huge. And then developing resilience. So off the back of all this change and adversity that we're seeing, how do we still keep ourselves and our teams strong? So that is the core fundamental program in terms of Leader as Coach. The QR code that you see up in the top right will take you to some more information, but we've mentioned it before, but we give you a little bit of pre-program work. We do the masterclass drop, as we said, that's once a week. We do our live Ask Me Anything sessions, that's with me on a Friday. And then you've got your one-on-one coaching sessions. Pardon me. So we're trying to squeeze it in before Christmas. We know that people want to do this, and often it's just finding the time to do it. So we've removed that barrier and blockage for you, and we're offering it as a 6-week. All right. And as a gift for you today, and we've got a couple of minutes for questions, another QR code. This is a different one. This will take you to the Deliberate Leader white paper, which gives you a little bit of information on some of our other work that we're doing in the Deliberate Leader space. Our brand new Deliberate Teams Diagnostic, we only launched this last month, and it's having some great impact. So we take your team through a diagnostic, they complete it, that gives us some data on 10 key aspects of a deliberate team. And then with you, we build out the program. So what you want to cover in your Deliberate Teams program. So you've got full flexibility there. And adaptability. There's a link there to book in a discovery call, so a 30-minute session with me. If you just want to chew the fat over deliberate leadership, anything that you've heard today, please feel free to do that. I love having a chat with all of you collectively, but also individually. There's an offer there for a Deliberate Leader Masterclass too, for up to 30 people in your business. And you can download Chapter 1 of You Are How You Lead. I hope that's given you some more information today in terms of leading like a coach. It's a lot. If you weren't hungry at the start of this session, you will be, because you will have built up an appetite after that. But I've got a couple of minutes for questions if anyone wants to unmute. I'm going to scan the chat here. See if there's anything I've missed. Any comments or questions from anybody? And lovely to see so many of you that I haven't seen for ages. Thank you for adding to those questions. If you you should take a screenshot of those questions if you haven't. We're going to send you a copy of the slides and the recording, so you can go back if you haven't already and got a picture of the questions, but you've got a whole bunch in there that you've also been given from the colleagues in our session today. Any questions from anybody? Who's going to accept the 2-to-1 challenge? Yeah, good. Denise and Nicola are right in. Jay, you're going to have to hold me to account on the 2-to-1 challenge. Jay and I have got a one-on-one in 45 minutes. Let's see how I go. Oh, beautiful, Shiana and Tash. Everyone's up for it. Excellent. All right. Well, thank you very much for kicking off your Monday with me. I love running these masterclasses. We do them once a month. We'll let you know the details for the next one in a couple of weeks. Otherwise, have a really, really good week. Any questions that you've got about Leader as a Coach today, please do not hesitate to get in touch. And I'd love to see as many of you as possible in our online program too. Thanks, everyone. Have a great week.
Thanks, Rita.
Thank you.
See you. Bye.